Now, there was a time where you were in New York, I think working 7 nights with more than 7 shows.
Oh, yeah.
Like you would go to one show, then the other, and you had your assistants, your 5 or 6 assistants. You would do the award shows, things would explode, 20 dancers.
Yeah, it was, I was in the prime, at least in that era of my career. And I guess it was just a couple of years of like working in the clubs and meeting a whole bunch of people and having all these conversations. And then eventually they turned into all these opportunities. And I was working definitely 7 nights a week, some nights like 8 or 9 shifts a week. Early shifts and then late shifts, going from one show to the next, sometimes going to one show, going to another show and coming back to that same show to get that check.
Of course, because it was like the Peppermint show and I got to go across town to do the Peppermint show.
It was so weird. I remember the moment that it jumped the shark was when I was asked to be on the cover of HX magazine. And so I went and did that shoot, and then I secretly went like the next day and did a shoot on the cover of Next magazine. Now these were 2, for those that don't know, they were like the 2 local gay rags in the city.
Right, but let's not put it too lightly. They were the 2 Bibles of gay nightlife, and they were fighting with each other for who was #1, Lady Red. And they would never have let.
They would never let.
the same Qween be on the cover, but Peppermint was not about to take no for her answer, sweetie.
The same week, they would come out basically the same day, and both covers came out with my face on the cover at the same time, and they were not happy.
No,
and they were like, okay, we gotta take this bitch down. And so like, then it started to simmer. They're like, okay, let's find somebody else to put on the cover.
Oh, honey. So then there must have been kind of a weird period between being the #1 queen in New York to the start of Drag Race, where suddenly all these upstarts who haven't been doing drag for very long are suddenly shot into international fame.
Yeah, it was a weird vortex, because there was a moment in time where just being in New York City, I know you know this, working in the New York City nightlife scene was pretty much enough to build your reputation outside in other places.
Yeah.
People would come to New York City, obviously vacation in New York City, promoters, club owners, and then they would invite you to go to their club in Arizona, their club in California. And so I was able to travel around the world to London, to Australia for the first time around 2009, 10, 11, 12, without ever having been on Drag Race. And I remember I was asked to be on Drag Race, the first season, and I didn't know what it was. Nobody had seen it yet.
Right.
And I was thinking, this is going to be like some Jerry Springer stuff. Girls are going to be fighting and throwing drinks at each other and cursing each other out. I don't want to do that.
And you were right.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's people fighting and throwing drinks at each other.
Certainly around season 2, 3, it was that. Yeah.
And so I didn't want to do it, and then I was thinking, I don't really need to do it, because I'm traveling the world and doing these shows, and it's great for me. I'm doing what these queens are already doing. Well, that started to dry up, and then eventually, like, club owners would be like, they would go from asking, well, you're from New York City and you know Sherry Vine and Lady Bunny and Michael T. They would go from asking that to be like, oh, well, what season of Drag Race were you on? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh.
Maybe it's time to audition.
Yeah.
How many times did you audition?
Auditioned 3 times.
3 times. The nerve of making you audition 3 times.
Yeah, the first time was I had it felt great. Like, they were really responsive. They were talking to me. They were looking at my tape. They were like, getting back to me. I got really far, and I had to there's several things you have to do before you go on the show, aside from the audition, but there's also like background checks and all this stuff. So they'd done all that stuff for me. And so it felt like I was pretty much on. And a friend tells me later on that I was pinned, which means that you're on the board, a part of like the preliminary cast. Mm-hmm. Then the last minute, something must have reorganized, and all I was waiting for was a call. Everybody else got a call and left, and I didn't.
Wow.
And so then I was like, damn it. But kind of at the same time, what was happening for me was the New York City 7 days a week went from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. And I was in a relationship that I had a horrible breakup, and it was devastating. And it was the moment where kind of my transness went from sort of the back to the front, you know? And that was a lot for me to kind of sort through and figure out, like, am I still a queen? Am I still doing drag? Am I trans? Am I really a woman? How does this all work? Does it? I don't see anybody else really doing it. And so that was like a little bit of a struggle for a while.
That's like a full identity moment.
Yeah, and I'd even seen, I won't say names, but I remember even seeing another queen who is trans, a girl who had worked in drag, who is trans also. After she came out, she was let go from all of her jobs, and she was a viral sensation. She had shows at Barracuda, which is a big place where queens would have their own one-woman show.
That was the place, yeah.
And so I watched that happen for her and said, oh, I can't have this happen for me.
Right.
And so instead of like making an announcement and coming out, I remember reading Lena did an interview in the magazine, basically kind of driving home the point, like, I am a woman, use these pronouns, my name is Lena. It's no longer what it used to be. Girlina was her drag performance name. And so I remember watching, reading all that and saying, oh my gosh, this is like really personal to have out in public. And I just was not in the space to kind of do that. So instead, I was just like, let me just go inside and I'll limit my appearances, which were being limited anyway. I remember I was in the middle of this breakup on the phone on a Sunday night during my karaoke night, which is the only show I had left, one of the only shows I had left. And I was literally being broken up with on the phone.
Wow.
While my karaoke show was going on. And I stepped outside. I was on the phone. It was a 7-hour night doing karaoke. So for an hour, I had the DJ just run the thing for me. I was in a moment of crisis. I was in tears, breaking up. And so I was out there for an hour on the phone, breaking up and having a conniption. And then I went back in, and the owner and manager was like, it seems like your head's not really in the game. We're gonna have to let you go.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm losing my livelihood, and I don't know how to deal with it. I'm in crisis. And so I think that really highlights it's definitely not very unique of an experience when it comes to trans women, and definitely trans women of color, losing their ability to work and earn a living. It's usually attached to their identity. That's one of the court cases that was being heard for Title VII.
Right.
Amy Stevens, who had been a longtime employee of this funeral home, did the courtesy of writing a letter and coming out to them, letting them know, my appearance is going to change. I have a new name, new pronouns. I'm still going to show up and be the same exemplary professional employee that I have been. But I just want to give you the courtesy of warning you and letting you know that this is what you can expect.
Right.
And they fired her. And so this is like happening all over the place.
It is.
And so anyway, that was a really devastating moment for me. And I didn't really know how drag was going to continue to support me because it was removing itself from my life.
Right.
And then there was another moment at which I was like, okay, I need to, how am I going to fund my transition? I can try to go work in makeup, which I did for a while, and that was okay. But I wasn't earning the coin that you could earn, the cash that you could earn in nightlife.
Right.
And so I was like, the only other way to do it is to continue to do drag and audition for Drag Race.
Yeah.
And so I was like, let me open up this drag suitcase again, get in drag, get in the moment, and just audition. And I was really terrified that the same thing that was happening to me in the nightclubs was going to happen to me on Drag Race.
Right.
Or on the audition. And so I was really quiet. I didn't say anything I didn't talk about my transness. I just was like, I'm in drag. Let me do what you said on the paper and do it. They seemed to really like it. The second year, so obviously I didn't get on. The second year, I didn't get on again. My phone didn't even ring. And that was season 8. And so the third year, I was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. Now I have Obamacare. I don't need Drag Race to fund my transition. I'm gonna do what I want. I'll audition one more time because I have it ready. I'll audition, and whatever happens, happens, bitch.
Because I know the lines to that mahogany scene.
Hello. I was like, it was pretty much, you know, the mahogany scene. I know it. I have the dress
We've
ready.
done it a lot with Lady Red.
Yes, darling.
Like, let's do another
Let's just
version
do another
of that
take,
this year.
Send it in, and they called me, and they put me on, and I think it had something to do with the fact that I just had I don't give a shit what happens attitude. I don't need this attitude, and obviously it was life changing, and I knew that it would be. But the audition itself, I didn't want to put myself through any more agony, so they put me on.
And were you at the end of it all? Because there's so much about Drag Race.
So much, darling.
I mean, you were the lip sync assassin. The lip syncs.
Honey.
That's when we got to see the New York City training of Peppermint doing 20 shows a week. Is that when they said, "Okay, it's your time to send these bitches home," you did.
I was fine. Yeah, I was never. I mean, I was never really worried about the lip syncs because I was like, okay, I can do this. I can't sew, really. I sewed a couple of things and it didn't look too bad. And my snatch game was a fool, darling. But I was like, don't put me on that stage. You know, you can do what you want, but don't put me on the stage.
Right, because that's one thing. No matter whether one challenge or not may be good, we know you can
I'm gonna be all
perform
right.
and you can lip sync your ass off.
Thank you.
Well, honey, it all worked out in the end, didn't it?
It's all right. It worked out pretty good.
It did.